It's Friday, February 2nd, 2024, and this is the Washington Times front page. Thanks for joining us. I'm George Gerbo. New York Governor Kathy Hochul has embraced deportation for the migrants who assaulted two NYPD officers. Stephen Dinan and Matt Delaney report Hochul, a Democrat, criticized the releases and said the perpetrators are candidates for deportation. Critics say migrants are seeking out New York City in particular because of its promise of housing and services and its sanctuary policy. In the assault, a group of young men kicked and punched two New York officers who were trying to detain someone outside a migrant shelter near Times Square. 7 people have been arrested, and some have been released without posting bail. A federal judge in Florida has deemed it unconstitutional to bar a truck driver from carrying a handgun in a post office. Alex Royer reports U.S. District Judge Catherine Mizell ruled that federal prosecutors failed to show any historical regulations against carrying firearms at post offices in their case against Emmanuel Ayala. Ayala, who hauled packages for the Postal Service, entered a federal postal facility in Tampa with his gun in September 2022 and was subsequently charged with violating federal law and resisting arrest. A spokesperson for the Department of Justice did not immediately respond on whether it will appeal. President Biden is expected to cruise to an easy win in the South Carolina primary, but Republican candidate Nikki Haley could dampen his victory. Susan Ferricchio reports Biden's allies are downplaying expectations for a repeat of the turnout from 4 years ago and say Haley may lower his numbers. Voters don't register by party in the state, and some who typically vote Democrat or are independent are signaling they will skip the Democratic primary to vote for Haley in the February 24th Republican primary. Coming off a solid second-place finish to Donald Trump in New Hampshire, but facing an uphill battle for the nomination, Haley is casting herself as a new generation of leadership against him and Biden. Staying with the campaign, lawyers debating whether Donald Trump should be on the presidential ballot this year are now battling over who should argue the case before the Supreme Court next week. Alex Royer and Stephen Dinan report attorneys for Colorado voters who brought the initial lawsuit have asked the justices to not let the Colorado Secretary of State's team argue. They said they have the case covered and see no need for the state to cut into their allotted time. The case stems from the 14th Amendment's insurrection clause, which bars certain officials who engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the government from holding office. The Colorado Supreme Court has ruled the provision applies to Trump and prohibits him from the primary election ballot next month. A conservative advocacy group has filed a complaint asking the District of Columbia Bar to investigate whether Hunter Biden should lose his law license because of the criminal charges against him. Stephen Dinan reports America First Legal says Biden has run afoul of the bar's rules prohibiting conduct that brings disrepute to lawyers. The rules specifically mention fraud, such as failing to file income taxes. The D.C. bar said that all disciplinary matters are confidential until charges are brought, so it couldn't confirm or deny the existence of an investigation. And finally, the nominee to head the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command told a Senate hearing that China's military could launch an attack against Taiwan before 2027. Bill Gertz reports Admiral Samuel Paparo told the Senate Armed Services Committee that the Chinese military threat is increasing. He warned that cyber attacks against American electronic and space systems would be the first battle in a conflict with China. Find all today's front page stories at WashingtonTimes.com/front page or on the Washington Times app, and find us wherever you get your podcasts. Just search Washington Times in any major podcast app. You can also find us on social media at Wash Times for breaking news, sports, commentary, and more. For the Washington Times, I'm George Gerbo.